Welcome to the X Factor. I'm your host, Charles Epstein. Today's guest is Faisal Haq, an award-winning entrepreneur, world-renowned technologist, and tech executive with over 3 decades of experience working with leadership at companies such as PepsiCo, MasterCard, IBM, Home Depot, and at the U.S. Department of Defense. Faisal is a 3-time winner of the Deloitte Technology Fast 50 and Fast 500 awards, and is the author of the forthcoming book, Transcend, Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI. His work has appeared in the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times, Business Insider, Inc., Fast Company, Forbes, and others. Faisal joins us today from Stamford, Connecticut. Hey, Faisal.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Thanks so much for taking the time. You know, I spent some time on your website, and there's a page titled My Journey of Gratitude. You arrived here from Bangladesh at the tender age of 19 to study electrical engineering, and you discuss the various challenges, or the various, to use your words on the site, the various no's you encountered, that's N-O, you encountered along the way. It really, I have to tell you, Faisal, it's an inspiring story of perseverance, never taking no for an answer. Tell us a little bit about this journey of gratitude.
Sure. Look, I consider myself extremely fortunate despite whatever I encountered because, because as you just said, that I came here when I was 19 years old, meaning in U.S., went to school right after, in my senior year, I developed a software product, and that's how my career started. And since then, I managed to build and get involved with multiple technology ventures. Some of them were very successful. Some of them are not successful. I was able to do a classic technology entrepreneurial thing where I started a company, were doing extremely well, raised money, got fired from my own company, started the next company, and then I managed to, start writing books, which was not for anything but just to explore my ideas and thoughts. And that kind of bloomed. So you mentioned Transcend. This is going to be my 10th book. I don't write
Your
books
10th
for...
book.
Yes.
10th book. Wow.
10th book. And the last 3 books were all Wall Street Journal bestsellers. And all my book goes to charity because cancer research, because I have a personal story behind it, because my son is a cancer survivor. And, when I say no, taking no, we all face adversity. And the more you want to do, the more adversity you face, more you want to explore and innovate and push the boundaries. You explore, you encounter adversity. So that it's not so unique, from anybody else's life. But my attitude towards it, that even in my failure, I try to find gratitude, because it allows me to ground myself and take the learning and do better next time. And some things work, something doesn't work, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And even on a personal level, you can imagine if your child, if your only child is gets diagnosed with cancer at the tender age of 18, when he just started his freshman year, right end of the pandemic. So I've faced these various types of adversity, but I've also was showered with enormous amount of generosity by different type of people, all walks of people, both emotional, financial, and otherwise. So I consider, my journey absolutely a blessing, and I try to count my blessing every day, and the message that I try to portray to the world it is a message of hope and optimism, but with pragmatism, because everything is not sunshine and rose, as they say, right? So
For sure.
that's where it is.
Yeah, but what I appreciate, particularly appreciate, and I encourage anybody who's listening to this to go to that page. I'll have the website in the description. Is how transparent you are. Your forthcoming book, you say it's your 10th, pretty
Yep.
impressive.
Thank you.
Transcend is about how we could use AI to unlock humanity's full potential while protecting what is most precious about the human experience. Now, this is arguably the biggest challenge AI poses
Yes.
and goes to the heart of what AIX is all about, how to successfully navigate the world of AI augmented work and how to ensure that AI is human centric. Someone not as optimistic about this as you appear to be. What makes you optimistic that AI will be a force for good and that will be able to maintain this balance?
So my optimism comes from all the things that could that it can have a positive impact. So whether you look at pick a topic as healthcare and medicine, I mean the things that we've already seen in the last 3 to 5 years, utilization of AI for disease diagnosis, for drug discovery, patient care, predictive healthcare, it's going to have an enormous impact. And for me personally, it's good news because I worry about my son, and I'm hopeful that there will be cure, not just maintenance. So those could be interesting. So that's just one area. You can look at other areas. So we talk about work. And since large audience that you have is in work related. I mean, there is enormous opportunity to actually increase our creativity, productivity, and output based on how we utilize AI on our daily life. But there's also a danger where we start outsourcing our thinking process and we become, we lose our freedom. What I mean by that, so for example, take a simple example of, okay, I'm crafting an email. So I put a few bullet points and I put it on ChatGPT and it crafts me a nice little email. Pretty soon, or let's say in a daily life, you were watching Netflix and you want to finish the show, you want to look for the next show. You don't need to look for the next show because it's telling you which one you should look,
Right,
right?
right.
Or you look at the news feed and you read a news item, and next thing it's telling you, exactly the same news item. So what is happening is that, I mean, consciously or unconsciously, we're actually outsourcing our freedom, right? So humanity, when you talk about protecting the humanity, protection of humanity is how we, protect that freedom of choice. What we see, what we consume, what we believe, what we question, what we create, how we work. These are all the freedoms. So we individually we have a conscious decision to make how much of it we want to outsource and how much
Right.
we want to take advantage so that it can actually enhance our creativity. So I'll give you a positive example from my personal life,
Sure.
and then we'll talk from an organizational point of view.
Great.
As we just talked about, I've got 10 manuscript and 10 books of 10 manuscript, and I don't always remember what I wrote and what I talked about 10, 20 years ago. So I loaded up all this manuscript in my custom large language model setup, which is closed, and I can go in there and say, okay, so what did I say, 20 years ago or 10 years ago about, let's say, organizational culture, right? And it pulls up from the 10 manuscript, in seconds, right? So if I had to go and flip through it, that would take a lot of time, right? So,
Yeah.
these are, very simple example of productivity gain, right? Or let's say, I mean, you say, I'm going to do research like we did for Transcend on various topic. Obviously, a lot of this AI engine does a lot of this hallucinative behaviors where it's not correct. It'll pull up a source and it's not correct. It makes it up. But even with that, I mean, it's a lot easier to do research and it's a lot easier to accumulate or ideation of things that would be difficult to do. And you can imagine 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, repeated work, and there's various types of AI, obviously, as you know, like there's There is, AI for automation, AI for analytics and predictive modeling. There's AI for generative AI, and then next phase of AI is going to be, what we're calling, everybody's calling the agentic AI, where you can actually allocate work, and it's self-healing, and it has ability to think for itself to a certain extent and take decision on its behalf. So what that
Yeah.
means, especially in a work environment, that's your work counterpart, right? That's like a resource. It's an AI resource, just like a human resource. So as leaders and manager, you'll have to consciously think which part of your work in your organization you want to allocate to those agents, and which part of the work you want to allocate to yourselves, meaning the human being. You can think of a synthetic being and carbon being, meaning we're the natural being, and these are the synthetic beings. How do you manage that in the context of organizational structure? And how do you manage that to make you productive, yet retaining the creative element of what we want to do and how we want to progress and growth? That's going to be the deciding factor where humanity goes. Because work and individual is collection of society, and then you add the government element to it. That's basically the society. So if you look at the Transcend, what we try to do, we said, look, here's how it impacts individually, how it impacts organizationally, how it impacts from the government point of view, and we can talk about
Right.
legislation and the guardrail and et cetera, et cetera. But we try to develop a framework that basically allows you to explore the opportunity, but also put the proper guardrail or governance, considering the ethical element of humanity,
Right.
and protect us.
So agentic AI, to some extent, we talk about augmented,
Yeah,
the world of AI augmented work, which is sort of what you're talking about or what we're evolving into or towards. What about where we have AI personas who
yeah,
are discrete, autonomous entities that work beside you? How do we integrate these into the
yeah,
workplace? People are now talking about how
sure.
how HR needs to think about them as though they are, for all intents and purposes, people, etc. What's your view on that? That's really
Yeah, I
kind of an
mean,
interesting new thing.
yeah, and again, and as you flip through Transcend, a manuscript, you see we talk about persona. Persona is basically gets implemented with various type of models. So whether that's an agent, whether that's a generative AI, or whether that's a predictive model, you craft what you want this particular persona to do. So for example, if you say, look, I want this persona to be part of my innovation team, and it's going to be a research persona, you define what that element of work that you want this persona to do, and then you apply a particular model of AI to implement that. And it's not just a model; it's a combination of different models, right? Meaning how you interact with it, how you structure it, how you architect it. But the persona is what I was talking about a few minutes ago, in the sense that you'll have to consciously decide where you can, how you define persona in the context of what you want to accomplish. So the purpose becomes a greater question, not necessarily the technology itself. Meaning, what's the purpose of our organization, and how does this particular technology can help us to get there faster, cheaper, or more accurately, or considering the impact we're going to have in our organization, but also in the society, right? So the definition of persona is more important than actual implementation of the persona. So if you look at that, that's really boils down to softer human skills, and how it integrates with we as human beings versus just the technology implementation, right? So I see a lot of the organization today, jumping into, let's evaluate this tool, let's evaluate that tool. Yes, you need to know what the possibilities are, but more importantly, you need to figure out where do you want to go? How do you want to, what's the purpose of it? And what's the mission of it, right? And otherwise, you're just going to create technology for technology case. And in this case, because it's so powerful and pervasive, you actually could do more harm than actually doing any good.
Yeah. How concerned argue that this technology could evolve to become autonomous.
I am very concerned. It's not just it's not just from the technology being autonomous. Because of my last 8 years of DoD and my continuous work with DoD, DHS, and other agencies, and since I got exposed to quite a bit of the geopolitical threats, both from inside the country and outside of the country. I mean, as you know, you saw some stuff last week talking about the deep seek stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So if you look at all that, there will be there's a race, and the race will create divergence between society, and we will try to use this type of technology against each other. Like, you saw I mean, there's a lot of conversation about, like TikTok collecting data and it's owned by Chinese, and then DeepSeek is even more pervasive because it has AI engine that can go and collect all your information from your phone, and CCP can, the Chinese government can utilize it to craft their strategy. You can use AI to shut down our basic infrastructure because we're exposed. You saw that, I'm sure I don't know how many people knows this, but those two terror attacks, like during right around the election where we had that, the Cybertruck, incident, and we had that shooting. Both of those individuals were very technologically savvy, and they used AI and Google Glass and other type of technology to map out and execute their plan. So it's not just danger is not just the fact that, well, the machine will take over. There's obviously there is that danger, but you can also see what will human being will do with this. So here's a crazy thought. I mean, imagine this, okay? Imagine that all the fast food centers are now run by fast food, meaning McDonald's are, there's combination of robotics and AI is cooking your hamburger, right? And the taxis are all autonomous, right? And half of the knowledge workers are no longer needed because it got, replaced by these personas that we just talked about. Mm-hmm. So what happens, you now have a mass unemployed people, it could be anything from 35% to 70% people are unemployed. Yes, there'll be new jobs that will be created, but let's say it always goes through this curve, right? So I mean, it's an adjustment, and this technology is far more pervasive than any other technological evolution that we have seen in human history. So if you have that many people unemployed and they don't have anything to do and they're suffering, you can imagine the geopolitical unrest that will be created because of that. So I think that is as a bigger threat as saying, okay, now these AI agents and AI systems are 1,000 times more smarter, which it will be because it's a collection of, it's like a simple mathematics, like one person versus 10,000 person. So if an AI system is 10,000, a million, collection of million minds and knowledge, obviously it's going to be smarter than you. You can't be expert in philosophy, physics, computer science, and medicine as one human being versus a system that is actually well trained on all of those things. So it will be smarter than you, right? So the question is, how do we, what's our individual responsibility? How do we put together the legislative and legal and governmental guardrail in terms of how it's being developed, how it's being used, how it's being deployed, distributed? And then the last piece of it is, what does these technology companies and application of the technology that's being used by large corporation, what do they do with it, right? So these three elements is going to decide what happens to humanity in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 25 years, 50 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, what's amazing about this is that it is moving so fast.
Yes.
Right. I mean, artificial superintelligence is probably going to be here before the end of the decade.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that may be a little bit down the road, but certainly artificial general intelligence will be here probably within 2 years.
Yes,
So,
without a doubt, without a doubt.
it's
And but
interesting. Again,
so,
sorry.
my concern, you asked me about the concern. My immediate concern is there's this behavioral pattern that we're developing, right, as human being, as a society. Because, AI is a reflection of human society, right? It's learning from all our behavior. It has no data source except for human society. It's all the history, all the current affairs. That's what's teaching it to be whatever it's going to be. So this human behavior is what's going to shape its patterns, right? And recognize, and so once that's trained, and whatever we do in next, 3 to 5 years, it's going to be the direction. So my concern is what I just showed, what I said. If you have like a very mass, unhappy group of people, then it can create all sort of havoc. And
Right.
now, it's not like, think about, I often use this, when I was talking to our legislative representative in the course of writing the book, I sat down with, Senator Blumenthal, which is the Connecticut senator, and then I also had conversation with Josh Hawley, because they crafted a legislative framework that never got passed, but it's sitting there. But I was talking to them, and I asked them, like, look, aren't you concerned with all these unemployed people, and what do you do with them? And it's not like drug industry, or it's not like nuclear industry, where it's very closed. AI is accessible by anybody and anybody with the with your flip, with your smartphone, right? So you can do a lot of damage if you want to do a lot of damage, right? So
Yeah.
my concern is what we do to each other utilizing AI first, and then what AI does to us second, right?
Yeah. As the host of this podcast and managing AIX, I take a pretty agnostic
Yep.
position. But I do find that a lot of people, our audience is made up of HR professionals predominantly.
Mhm.
I find that they take too casual a view and think, well, there have been other disruptive technologies that have come down the pike. We're a resilient species. We're going to figure it out. There'll be periods of disruption. But, at the risk of hazarding an opinion, I think that this is different.
It is different. It's absolutely different. The reason it's different is because you have to look at we never created any technology that can start thinking for itself and start formulating its own opinion. That's one, right? Second is that the pace of it is a million times faster than whatever we've seen, right? And then you look at global population. Global population is now far more tech savvy than it ever was. Why that matters is because the adoption curve and utilization curve is a lot faster than even when, let's say, the browser was coming out, right? So I remember when I started my career, I was doing this training on a sales automation system. This is in the 90s, and the brow, we just started introduced this mouse, and as I was training the people, they literally picked up the mouse like this, and started clicking on it because they thought it was like it's remote control, right? And so that's where we were. And so that is not the case. A 2-year-old now turns on this, a smartphone and goes wherever. And we are far more, if you look at all the things that we do to each other, it is utilization of technology. So the challenge is 1,000 million times more than, let's say, when we had steam engine, and then we had industrial revolution, and then we had internet and information revolution, versus where we are with AI.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And eventually it's going to be embedded in everything. So it's going to
Yeah,
be completely ubiquitous. I mean, now when we talk
yeah,
about AI, we, for the most part, talking about generative AI, we're talking about these things, but it's in the air. It's in everything we're going to be using. So
yeah.
it's a very new world. You write that persona management will become a critical skill in
So,
2025. What is persona management?
so personnel management is really about, considering a synthetic, resource or, this artificial resource as part of your organization, right? So, when we manage a human being, we say, okay, look, you do this and I do this, and collectively as a team we do this, and then we have system that does allow us to retrieve information or input information. We never had a technology where that technology is now also part of your team. So now you have to decide consciously, say, okay, what does this persona does while we have an upper hand because we are allocating the task to be more effective, more innovative, more creative, but also we don't want to take over our thinking process and our creative guidance that we are trying to manage. So treating system not just as a one-way street, this bi-directional relationship, and consider that persona as a partner is going to be challenging because it's not how we think, right? It's not we're not wired to think that well, my computer is a partner, right? I mean, you think about it's an automation and it's a system, right? So you have to start treating that thing as a human being as you would treat as a human being, but with the guardrail because you need that guardrail to protect ourselves, right? So that's where the challenge comes in, and it requires a higher degree of cognitive reasoning than it's like it's and then one of the things we use in the book is like a child, right? Let's say you're a parent and you're managing it, you're like you're guiding a child, and the child all of a sudden grows up, and then child at some point takes over and you become the child, and that child become your parent. So that's what's going to happen with this.
Hmm.
So the question is, do we want to become a volunteer? Do we want to progress to the point where we're completely dependent on these things and they're managing us versus us managing them? This is the fine balance, right? But that analogy is very apropos because it's in nascent stage where we're teaching it. So when it gets smarter and smarter and better than us, what happens?
Yeah, yeah, no, that is the problem. You mentioned that you are using or have been using this closed
Hmm.
LLM for your own work.
Hmm.
I'm assuming it helped you write Transcend. We have this
Sure.
new segment that I just introduced called What's in Your Bag. I'm a big tennis fan, and the Tennis Channel has that as a recurring segment. They ask players what's in your bag. Happens to be more interesting than it sounds, Faisal. Trust me. So I'm going to ask you, what's in your bag? What are your go-to AI tools apart from
Sure.
this closed LLM that you've been
Sure.
using?
I mean, I use I use Claude. I use ChatGPT. There are a bunch of other AI tools that I'm playing with, but I'm
Have
also
you kicked the tires on DeepSeek yet?
no, I will not touch DeepSeek. I will
Because of the
not. I
Chinese
will.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I will not touch it. I'm not going to bring it on any of my
yeah.
devices. Um, but I also use backend. Because of my actual work with the organization. We are. I have been playing with a lot of the enterprise software. So whether you look at like ServiceNow, or whether you look at SAP, or whether you look at what Microsoft is doing for the enterprise augmentation and enterprise automation. So I play with those kind of systems, which you don't necessarily. It's not. The generative AI and the Chat GPT type of interface. That's just on the surface and is very consumer centric, and if I can use
Right.
that, it's not,
Mhm.
the back end AI for automation and developing agents that can detect fault on system or detect data bridge and allows you to do better analytics for decision support. Those are real organizational stuff. So because my work is on the enterprise side, not necessarily on the consumer side, from the work point of view, that's where I spend a lot of time. And actually in that context, all the stuff we talked about, persona management, a governance framework to protect your data, what you getting the enterprise exposed, how do you do the next generation organizational structure? I mean, even the question like, okay, who's going to lead on the enterprise side to implement this? The traditional CIO and CTOs are not necessarily ready to lead this kind of transformation, partly because they are very much ingrained with the day-to-day operation, system up, system down. We need to implement the ERP thing, this and that, and only a handful of CIOs and CTOs are actually involved in business strategy and business strategy implementation with technology. So the type of role that will actually will be evolved, and call it whatever. I mean, it may be the CIO role, it may be the CTO role, maybe a chief AI officer. In Transcend, we kind of argue that it's a combination of innovation and transformation officer who looks at all these elements, meaning the human element of organization and human element of humanity itself, the governance and ethics, technology, the potential gain and potential risk. You got to look at all of it, and somebody in the organization has to start thinking about it and then pull in this cross-domain expertise to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that is another major difference between AI and other technologies that have preceded it, that it requires that kind of cross-disciplinary collaboration.
For sure.
Your book, Transcend, Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI, I believe it's coming out in April. Do I have that right?
Yes. It comes out first week of April.
And it's available for pre-ordering over Amazon?
Yes, it's available for pre-ordering on Amazon or, Barnes & Noble and all the other books. It's distributed by Simon & Schuster, so you can order bulk from Simon & Schuster as well and whatever. So it's available everywhere.
Did I pass the audition to be your book agent, Faisal?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
You did. Thank you. Thank you for the plug-in.
No, really, really great stuff. It's amazing. 10 books. And you say all of the proceeds go to cancer research?
Yes, it does. I as I said, I'm very fortunate. I'm not like a typical author speaker that needs to generate revenue from doing. I mean, I've always loved sharing my knowledge, and now that I have this cause, I kind of figured that I use this to create awareness, especially around blood cancer area, because my son is diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a type of blood cancer, but also help with research in any small way I can, right? So it has become a cause.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's great. And your son how's he doing?
Doing well. He has gone back to school. He's studying. I mean, he took a break when he was diagnosed. I mean, he was in Hofstra in
Long Island. Yeah, my former stomping ground.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So he took a break for initial treatment, and now he's back in school, in local school in Connecticut.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, Faisal, I really do appreciate it. This is a great conversation. I appreciate you spending the time with us, and maybe a little bit down the road, your book's out, have you back for a sequel.
Absolutely. It would be my absolute pleasure and honor. Thanks for having me, Charles.
Thanks so much. Today, I spoke with Faisal Haq, an award-winning entrepreneur, world-renowned technologist, and tech executive with over 3 decades of experience working with leadership at companies such as PepsiCo, MasterCard, IBM, Home Depot, and the U.S. Department of Defense. He is the 3-time winner of the Deloitte Technology Fast 50 and Fast 500 Award. And as we said several times during the course of this conversation, the author of the forthcoming book, Transcend, Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI. And he joined us today from Stanford, Connecticut. This is Charles Epstein for The X Factor. Thanks for listening.